Welcome to the Unafraid Show. College football got sent into chaos this week with coaching changes. And Hall of Fame finalist Fred Taylor is in the building. And I know who the real wild card is in the NFL playoffs and more here on the Unafraid Show. Let's go. The last week has been a mess for college football fans all over the country. Ever since that man Nick Saban decided he didn't want to run it back with Alabama because he was starting to feel a little bit old. And the consequences and the ripple effects were felt everywhere across the country. Washington lost their head coach. Arizona lost their head coach. San Jose State lost their head coach. South Alabama lost their coach. And when I say that these schools lost their coaches, of course I'm referring to the fans who take all this movement very hard, but the actual consequences of that movement is experienced by the student athletes that play for the coaches. For every one coach that makes a major career change, hundreds of lives are directly impacted and thrown into disarray and confusion. But consistently in conversations I have about college football, whether on my radio show or in person or on social media, the primary concern of most fans isn't the decades old and increasingly chaotic coaching carousel, it's player movement. And in those conversations, more than anything else blamed by far, fans cite the transfer portal, the infusion of name, image, and likeness capital into college football as the reason that they're becoming disillusioned with the sport. I can't dismiss that dissatisfaction outright because the frustration people are feeling is real. Feeling like you have to invest more personally just to keep a player around for more than just a few months, all while staving off backdoor recruiting from schools with pay-for-play hedge funds masquerading as NIL collectives, it sucks and I get it. But the instability and volatility in college football everybody is feeling right now is the effect of trickle-down economics. Ronald Reagan would be proud right now. But seriously though, we spent the last 2.5 decades watching TV money create a coaching gold rush. Steve Spurrier became the first $1 million coach back in the late 90s. And 25 years later, we have over half of the country's Power 5 coordinators, not head coaches, making over $1 million. And guys like Jimbo Fisher getting an $80 million check not to show up to work. So coaches move from school to school and they chase that big check, they chase that bag, or they chase the pathways that are going to get them to the bag. And as the free market loving Americans that we are, we're faced with asking ourselves the question, why shouldn't they? And every Arizona fan on earth reeling from Jed Fish telling Jim Rome that he was going to stay and build in Tucson, only to see him sign a contract in Seattle just 10 days later, would have signed that contract themselves despite what they say. They can tell themselves that they go about it differently, but at the end of the day, the choice was between 4 years, $15 million, and $54 million. And it's like getting to the end of Deal or No Deal, but you know what's in both cases. And of course you're going to take the higher number. And maybe that's why the frustration never came out on the coaching profession as a whole the same way it has on the players, because on some level, we get the simplicity of the economics involved. More equals better for most people. And we get mad when our coach leaves, but not at the overall system, because we know that it's our time, our energy, passion, and resources that drive the system in the first place. And as fans, we want to believe that no matter how many times we've been burned, that there's something different about our institution, our campus, our tradition, and our fans. So when a coach comes in and tells us we're special, we get hooked again and again like a bass in a catch and release pond. It's that desire to believe and our addiction to hope that sells us on the lie that the kids are committing to the universities that we root for, that they're primarily concerned with our school's colors and traditions, and that they want to be one of us. When the truth is, the recruitment process for all but a handful of kids each year is insanely stressful and a game of musical chairs that's fueled by grown men who are paid top 1% money to convince teenagers and their parents to commit to an institution most of them are not fully committed to themselves. Seriously. Do you ever stop to think about the lunacy of a position coach that has been at like 4 schools in 5 years, calling up a kid and telling them college is a 40-year decision? And when they haven't even been at one place for 40 months. But if the salesman is selling our product, we overlook the tactics. We tell ourselves that these kids are committing to the school and not the coaches, even though we actively root for our schools to spend the money to acquire the best salesmen and recruiters that they can find. Because deep down, we know what it takes to get an elite player on campus, and it ain't the library. And when we have institutions ignoring that coaches are under contract and negotiating ways to buy them out and bring them in, why are we surprised that these coaches backdoor recruit players off of their rosters or that the players are receptive to it? When we have coaches bouncing from school to school every year looking for the clearest path to having play calling duties, why are we upset when the players bounce from school to school in search of playing time? When we accept that the chaos of having a coach come in and flip the roster in hopes that our path to success at an institution will be a little bit quicker, why do we lose our minds at athletes looking for the path of least resistance on another team's depth chart? So my ask is this: if you're going to be frustrated with what college football has become, don't take it out on the players for acting like the adults that they play for. We know where they learn to chase the check. It's obvious, the leadership. And we'll talk more about this in a little bit because I got to tell you how to get over if your coach leaves. But first, we got an interview. Now we're joined by Hall of Fame finalist, my former teammate, man who is you've seen him great on the Pivot podcast and so many other things, Mr. Fred Taylor. Fred, thanks for coming on the show, man.
My pleasure, G, man. Thanks for having me, bro. Hey, man, doing big things. Keep it up.
You just found out that you were a Hall of Fame finalist after a couple times making it as a semifinalist. Like, what was that moment like for you when you found out?
You know, this is sort of aside from being enshrined in Canton as a finalist. I mean, as a Hall of Famer, being a finalist is obviously the next best thing because you have an opportunity to go in the room. It's what they call getting in the room. When you're final 15, it's considered getting in the room, and at that moment, you have a real opportunity to have your case heard. Jacksonville was a small market. So for me, when I heard that I was a finalist for the first time in 5 years, I think I was a semifinalist. I was like, man, this is it. It was a surreal moment. I was excited and very elated, but at the same time, I didn't want to get overly excited because I understand the process.
Yeah.
I understand the process. If you're not a first ballot, it's a lot of campaigning. It's a lot of let them hear your case. And at that moment, so many guys are deserving. When you look at that list, you would say, man, he was great. Oh, wow, he was great. And then you look at yourself and say, I was just as good. So I think everybody on that final 15 list is deserving, but it's all in the voters' hands.
I'm going to say a name to you, and you tell me what the first thing that comes to your mind is.
Go for it.
Trevor Mawad.
Beautiful. He's a beautiful human being. I miss him. He changed my career. He turned my career around. I did not trust the Jaguars when they decided to hire a sports psychiatrist for me because they thought I was losing confidence in myself because of the injuries that I had. I was never losing confidence. I think what I could call it is I was overly frustrated because I knew that I was a much better player than what I was doing statistically and what I was able to do to help the team. So with that, when they brought Trevor in, I was like, nah, I'm not doing this. Like, the team hired you. I'm not doing this. Like, I can't open up. I don't trust you. But after a couple weeks of, Trevor coming in, telling me his life story, his journey, his bouts with cancer, his father's bouts with cancer, he earned my trust, and we developed a friendship, a relationship that sort of skyrocketed. And in turn, my career got back on track and skyrocketed. I had a 4-year window where I didn't miss a single game. And
Yep.
that was due to a lot of the practices that, Trevor and I would have, and the messages and just the approach, how to approach the game with all positivity. We used a little algebra where you can turn negatives into positives. Two negatives equal positive. So he would say, Fred, there's your double negative. Something good got to come out of it. And so we started to develop that mindset and approach to all things. I missed the hell out of Trevor. Trevor is the guy that reminds you that it takes what it takes. That's his book. It takes what it takes. Like whatever it is what you need to do to get it done. If this is what it takes, that's just it is simple. It is simple. If it takes you rearranging and change your mindset, learning how to develop tools in order for you to be a better, a more progressive person, that's what it takes. That's what you got to do.
Yep.
You got to go and sort out any and everything to make your journey on this earth better. And really, it's just developing a mindset to never quit. There's nothing better than understanding your past successes. Your past successes will invigorate your mindset or remind you and invigorate your mindset to believe that, look, I've done this before, I could do it again.
You've been a player that was obviously criticized by the media, but there was a lot of praise too. And I remember when I first got drafted to Jacksonville, there was an article that came out, and it said "Fragile Fred," and I was like, "Damn, that's messed up. Like, why would you say this?" And
Right.
so, what was that like to be, a first round pick, highly sought after, all of this stuff, to then to that point where you had a bunch of injuries, and then you have the local media writing articles that's just, I mean, when you're the butt of jokes.
But at that particular moment, I would say when it came out that there was some truth to it. It was my third season. I tore my groin off the bone. Just ripped it completely off the bone in the middle of the game. If you have a groin injury, if anybody's out there that's watching has ever had a groin injury or some type of muscle injury, specifically for groins, if you have chronic groin, they clip it off the bone. The procedure is to clip it off the bone under anesthesia and surgery. I did that on the field, minus anesthesia. So you're talking about pain, the worst stuff I ever felt in my entire life. I go into the training room. The reports from the training room back to the coach is he has a groin injury. They didn't go into he tore the muscle off the bone. So after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I went and got an MRI. For those 3 weeks or the first 5 days, I couldn't walk. I was on crutches. So I got an MRI, and it came back that I tore the bone from the adductor off the groin. So still, because I was one of the best, well, I was the best player on the team at that point in time, they decided not to put me on injured reserve because they needed me. Um, Time had passed. The media would start asking questions. Where's Taylor? Where's Taylor? Groin shouldn't take that long. Coach Coughlin at the time, he had such this like Army general mindset that he was like, gotta tough it out, son. You gotta do this. You can't make the club in the tub. Ain't no space in the training room. Get out of the training room. You have soft tissue injuries. Those should never exist. Those are the more tricky injuries.
Yep.
Like if we're being real, hamstring, growing, any soft tissue injuries or the more tricky injuries because you just never know. The NFL is about explosiveness, fast twitch. You need muscles for fast switch and explosion. So Coach Coughlin didn't come to my defense. The media started their agenda, which was this kid is soft. He's fragile. He can't return from a simple groin injury. And later it was discovered that I had torn my groin off the bone, which would eventually end a lot of guys' career. Arian Foster,
Yeah.
for example, that sort of shut his career down. But I fought back from it. It scarred down. And the next year, the numbers I put up were better than any other player in the NFL.
All right, Fred, I'm going to give you one more name and tell me what you think about this name. Jack Del Rio. That was my immediate if somebody asked me that would be my immediate reaction. I'd be like,
I
okay,
think,
how am I going to address this?
Yeah, I mean, because, Jack, I learned a lot from Jack. The fan base, the Weavers hired Jack, I simply think because the fan base wanted a player-friendly coach. They wanted somebody who wasn't as hard as Coach Coughlin. They wanted a former player, a coach who can relate to the guys, and a coach who had been on a winning team, and that was Jack Del Rio. He was on the Ravens defensive staff, there.
Yeah, 2000.
In 2000. And then they plucked him from, I believe, Carolina after that. So Jack wasn't an awful coach. Like, he wasn't an awful coach. He was a young head coach. So he did things sort of like what a young head coach would do, I think. But a young, arrogant head coach. We have some young head coaches who aren't arrogant. I think that's where the game is shifting to with a lot of young head coaches. But Jack was arrogant, but he wasn't a bad head coach. It was just that he had a lot of gray areas. And
see, that's the best way to say it, Fred, because that is the best way to say it.
It was a lot of gray areas. It was a ton of gray areas. I just recently heard a quote by Joe Dumars that Desmond Howard shared on the Pivot with us. He said, you'll never meet a superstar who's been coddled to greatness. That struck a nerve with me.
Yep.
Because that's all Coach Coughlin was trying to do. He didn't coddle anyone. It was always black and white. Fast forward past Del Rio to Bill Belichick, those 2 years, and I'm just sitting in the meeting rooms like this, George.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. So it made me think about, it was all black and white. So it made me think about what Coach Coughlin was trying to say. So I saw Coach Coughlin after a preseason game. I ran up to him. I said, Coach, I get it. I understand what you're trying to say. I understand what you were trying to say back then. I love you. Hopefully we could talk again later. I saw him in that offseason in Indy at the Combine. We passed each other in the hotel. He was coming from scouting. And we sat in front of the elevator. 200 people passed us going up and down the elevator. We talked for an hour outside the elevator, just about life, football, about that conversation, the black and the white, the game, what he was trying to do. I was like, wow. And I think we fell in man love. I fell in love with Coach then. And now that's our relationship. Now, going back to Jack Del Rio, who was in the middle, when I said Jack taught me a lot, Jack taught me that I always needed Coach Coughlin and Coach Belichick type coaches. As good as Jack was, player friendly, and what he did with us, and we had some good seasons there, I did not need a coach who sort of worked in the middle of gray. I didn't need a coach who was in the middle. I needed black or white. So if I stepped on either side, I knew the consequences.
Do you remember when he took the ping pong tables out of the locker room and turned off the power?
It's it's one of those things where, like a father, you're a father, I'm a father. How can we get our children's attention? And I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with that, because if I'm a leader, you're a leader, we're in there. You got some guys that don't know how to flip the switch. All right, I got to get your attention. I turn my kids' Wi-Fi off all the time. I'll turn their data off and send them to school. The only way you can
I ain't mad at that, bro. I am not mad. I do that same stuff, but I will turn that iPhone into a paperweight.
Correct. So you have to call me. You got no action. Your data is gone. No internet or games for you today. So I'm okay with that.
We'll be right back with Wrighster or Wrong with Fred Taylor. But first, we gotta eat. I was driving by today, and I've been seeing this spot on the way by. It's called CheeseSmack. And so every time I drive by, it's just a little spot on the street. I decide that I am going to stop. And today, I had the right amount of time. So we're going to see what they talking about around this joint. I'm hungry as hell right now, and I'm excited. So we're finna have an Unafraid Show meeting in a couple minutes, and
I don't have time to get something else. So if this sandwich nasty, I'm gonna be pissed, boy. Okay, let's see what we're talking about. Right here. Bread got a good consistency to it. Damn, it's hot, bro. Got the tomatoes, got the pickles, got the bacon jam. Let's see what they talking about. Be honest here. Huh. It's a solid sandwich. It's not the same as a New York chopped cheese. He's right. You can taste a little bit of sweetness from the bacon jam. See what this little sauce they're talking about on here is. I forgot what the sauce called, but see what that's talking about. See what this hidden for. It's supposed to be a little bit spicy. Number one, chopped cheeses are not supposed to be confused with Philly cheesesteaks. Totally different sandwich. Not even supposed to even taste the same. This is a very solid sandwich. I pulled over on the side of the road, essentially, on the side of the street to pick this thing up. Like, would I crave this sandwich? Yes, there are times I would crave this sandwich. So that gives you a minimum 7.5. If I'm like, damn, I want to get one of them sandwiches today. Intrigued to try some of the other flavors. Get this sandwich 7.8 out of 10. That means I definitely go back for that. Like it, and they go get a follow. And mind you, pay for this joint too. I should have showed y'all how much it costs. It costs $18. You get chips with it. Yeah, just whole joint. Yeah, it's good. I'm definitely gonna keep eating this sandwich after I finish filming this. Yo, never mind, I lied. I gave this sandwich a 7.8, and I had to change shirts because I had to record something. I told you I was hopping on a meeting. As soon as first chance I got, I came right back to this damn sandwich. The bread is soft as hell, but it still got a little firmness to it. That little sauce was popping. Like, it was one of them sandwiches to where when you initially get it, you're like, okay, that was solid. And then you're like, oh wait, hold on, that shit was good as hell. I'm gonna get that shit at 8.3, bro. That was, yeah, for real.
Now we got the segment. Oh, yeah, it is time for Wrighster or Wrong with Fred Taylor. Fred, are you ready to go? So I'm going to ask you, so I'm going to give you a statement. And then you either tell me, am I Wrighster or am I wrong? And then you can elaborate on it if you want to as well. Wrighster or wrong? Fred Taylor is one of the 10 best running backs in NFL history.
I'm in top 5. My numbers don't always say that, but I'm certainly top 5.
Wrighster or wrong? The best athletes in the country are from the state of California.
That is wrong as hell.
What?
Yes. You knew that though, but you knew, like, I get it. But Florida, without a doubt.
Oh, God, come on, man. Do we need to tell you where all the quarterbacks come from? We got great athletes, our basketball players, everything else. Come on, Fred. Fastest people come from Cali. The best basketball players, best football players, all of that, man.
No.
We just don't have linemen.
No, you guys got a lot of great athletes, but no. I think it's sort of spread around. Football, we dominate. You do produce quarterbacks. I give you that. We produce everything else on every level. Florida isn't a basketball state, but we've had some amazing talent in the state of Florida out of basketball. Yeah, but look at the population in the states. California big as hell.
Hey,
come
man,
on.
All we need is Southern Cali, and we fine anyway. Am I Wrighster or am I wrong? The University of Florida will win a national championship before the Miami Hurricanes and before the Florida State Seminoles.
Yes, you're a Wrighster in that. And I think if you also throw in the Oregon Ducks, we're going to win a championship before those 3 teams.
Oh, Fred, you didn't have to do that, bro. You know, you see what's going on. You see what's going on. You know we will win a natty way before University of Florida. I'm sorry, buddy.
You know, I think the best thing in Oregon right now is your running backs coach, my guy.
Coughlin.
Yes.
You've had a son drafted into the NFL. Your kids play sports. I just dropped my oldest son off to play college football. And tell me, am I right or am I wrong? Watching your kids play is more nerve-wracking than any game that you ever played in.
I would agree to that. But there's also a subtleness where you understand the game and you see it a lot faster than the normal fan or the regular fan. When things happen, you're there and you kind of, for me at the running back position, watch my son who's a running back, I was fine until he was under a pile too long, or I would see a certain hit, and then the parent in me would kick in because of the injury part. Like I can identify any injury, ACL, MCL, shoulders. That part of it keeps me kind of on the edge. And when my kid was at Florida, man, I enjoyed the hell out of it. Seeing him run out of that tunnel reminded me of my time at Florida. Seeing him out there on the sideline, kicking it with his guys, trying to get his attention. Now I'm the fan who's trying to get the players' attention. Right. So it puts you in a special place, man. It makes you feel good. Yet you also understand that this is their career. You understand that it's 1% of the guys are going to go on and be successful or be able to play in the NFL. So you kind of let them have their space, their time, and you root for them. You become their biggest fan, but still some nerves out there. But yet at the same time, it's a lot of love, try to let them understand that, hey, it's just a sport. You can learn a lot more about life and yourself from this game than the game itself. So that was always my message to my boy.
Right or wrong, the best part of your life has been after you have finished playing football.
Jeez. I think you stumped me with this one, Joy. I don't know if the answer right or wrong. It reminds me of when we asked our guests on the pivot, what's your biggest pivot? I'm stumped with that one because I had some amazing time as a player, developing relationships, enjoying my teammates, enjoying the game, learning life. The game taught me a lot. In my years that I played football from Pop Warner, I was garbage. I was awful.
You too?
Hey, look, I was awful. I played tight end and D tackle. I dropped 3 or 4 passes in our championship game. We got beat 31-13. And that same field that I dropped all those passes on was Glades Day High School, was the school that my son went to, who became the all-time leading rusher in the state of Florida. Man. So when I would attend his games, I would look at that scoreboard, which was the same exact scoreboard that was there when I played Pop Warner. I was like, shit, like, you suck. But I learned a lot. Every phase was about learning. I learned there, like, don't quit. I didn't quit. And then the next phase was high school. And we had somebody there that was better than me in high school. And I had to play a different position. So that taught me how to pivot. I had my ups and downs, Fragile Fred. My career could have been over, where the average life is 3 years. I played 13 years, fortunately. And that taught me a lot more about perseverance, discipline, motivation. It taught me about so much. And those years were fun. Post-football, I always said I wanted to attack post-career like I attacked my NFL career. 87% of the guys, when they're retired within 3 years, are broke or divorced. That intrigued me to not be one of those guys. So that was a challenge and motivation all in the same breath. And it's been fun. It still had my ups and downs, a lot of challenges in there. I wake up and say, damn, I ain't getting a $500,000 check on Wednesday. So that's a big difference. But it's fun. I don't know. I guess I got to give you the Jack Del Rio answer and give you a gray, sort of a gray answer, and put it in the middle, I guess.
Yeah.
I can say it's been equally amazing, because still at the end of it all, I'm learning, playing, retire or career change. I don't call it retirement, career change. And I try and use those things that happen to me in life and those messages that I acquire, and I try and give it back, to everybody that I come across, especially the young people. And that part's fun. I love that. Yeah, the Wrighster or wrongster, that one stumped me. But that's my answer.
That's Wrighster or wrong. He's Fred Taylor. Fred, thanks for coming on, man.
My pleasure, brother, man. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate the backside 7 techniques, getting across,
Hey,
giving me
man,
the
getting
opportunity
that-
to cut back and take it 50 or 60. I appreciate
Hey,
you, bro.
man, I got that 10,000 poster still.
That was a good day. 11-11-07 in Tennessee. A lot of good moments. We needed 11 yards to make it happen. Run an inside zone. Went and gave Chris Hope the business. Shout out Chris Hope, man. I love you. We had a lot of good matchups. It's just that you lost that one. I'm sorry, bro. But we did it, George, man. We did it.
Appreciate it, bro.
Yes, sir.
The NFL wildcard round was fantastic, and as we get closer to the Super Bowl, I'm going to be talking a lot more NFL right here on the Unafraid Show. Now, shout out to the city of Detroit for ending their playoff drought and the unkillable Baker Mayfield. The man is a cockroach, and I mean that as a compliment. You can try to kill his career, you can say he's dead, and he's coming back fighting. But what I want to talk about this weekend is the real winner of the wild card, the weather. The Kansas City game was so cold that Patrick Mahomes' helmet shattered. Have you ever seen anything like this? Throughout my whole entire life watching football, never seen it. I've seen fullbacks break face masks, but a quarterback lowering his head and the actual helmet explode, that's a new one for me, buddy. Now, it's the kind of thing that made some people wonder if it's a little bit too cold to be having a football game at all. Look, I was glad I wasn't out there, but I played in Chicago when it was a negative wind chill, the snow in Cleveland when it was single digits. And part of the allure of playing football is the different climates and environments. You got hot in the beginning of the season, cold at the end. And my message to anybody that's sitting up there saying, we need to do away with that. We should all be playing in domes. Listen, man, not everything in life needs to have soft edges. Hard men and women got the way that they are by accomplishing hard things on the hardest of days. And this is football. If you have a climate controlled stadium, good for you. But it doesn't mean that every city needs to surrender what makes them unique. Look at Buffalo. Look at Kansas City. Minnesota put up a dome. But those cities are supposed to be played outside. It's supposed to be tough. I will say, though, I'm not talking about the big game, because there's a reason why the Super Bowl is always played in cities where the influence of the elements is minimized. And no, it's not so the television audience has a better product. No, it's because nobody is paying $5,000 a ticket to go to a game and be miserable. And the halftime performance, Rihanna ain't going out there singing about needing an actual umbrella. But don't think that this means that I'm on the side of all the people that whined about the Bills and the Steelers game getting moved to Monday. Because the NFL is a business, and there's no worse way to do business than to make your customers risk their lives just to show up and consume your product, or playing in an empty stadium. That ain't good for nobody. Did you see those conditions in Buffalo on Saturday night? Did we really want people out on the roads on the way to the game and leaving the game, drinking and everything else? How about no? And yes, I know that these are the same Bills fans that choose to dive through flaming folding chairs just for fun, but the NFL is not making them do it. And as a side note, shout out to the Bills fans that showed up on Sunday to help shovel snow out of the stadium. Bro, you better than me. And to the one dude that decided to do it shirtless, take a look at this guy.
Oh shit!
Oh hell no!
This tough guy here, oh, he could have played the game.
Crazy.
What a legend. The Bills could not have done it without you. And now I want to go back to college football for a second. I might have been a little harsh on the fans who were feeling emotional about their team making a change over at Arizona or Washington or wherever you might be. If you lost your coach to the coaching carousel this year or last year, or you might lose your coach in the future, which should cover just about everybody, I got some advice for you. Maybe you're asking yourself, what do I, George Wrighster, what do I know about losing a head coach, and why would you want my advice? Well, I'm an Oregon man and an Oregon fan, and I've watched Chip Kelly, Willie Taggart, and Mario Cristobal all leave Eugene for something better. Nick Saban didn't even get the words "I'm retiring" out of his mouth before people started asking about Dan Lanning moving to Tuscaloosa. Hell, even a local reporter in Eugene even said that sources told him that Lanning was in Tuscaloosa. In Tuscaloosa, causing panic in Eugene despite the man being at home with his family watching The Bourne Identity. And for Oregon fans, prior to Dan Lanning, peace in the Middle East seemed more possible than Oregon going 3 years without having to look for a new leader at head coach. And beyond that, my son committed to a college coach this year, and the university, of course, who turned around and retired before signing day. And I might not be an expert on everything, just on most things, but I'm definitely an expert on this. And it's frustrating because there's no way around it. To do this job right, you have to be all in, and you have to convince everybody around you to be all in. A head coach goes into the locker room and tells people who were strangers just a couple months ago that they're now brothers. You create this family dynamic for a self-contained period of time to achieve a specific objective, and then what? The literal meaning of a season is a time that comes and goes, but family doesn't come and go, or at least it's not supposed to. Because I grew up in a close-knit family, so I vividly remember how heartbreaking the end of my freshman year at Oregon was. Just having to face the realization that the seniors that I grew so close with, that they weren't coming back. And if you're a team that did something special like Washington or Arizona did this year, and you're bonded over the sacrifices it took to become successful, it's an especially bitter pill to swallow when your leaders tell you that they found something better and walk out the door. And that's exactly why such a moment of jubilation it was for Oregon fans when Dan Lanning turned down the Alabama interest and let his players know that the job in Eugene was not finished. Now, for the first time in a very long time, Oregon fans and alumni felt like that they were throwing their support behind somebody who practiced in the offseason what they preached during the season. And at the end of the day, nobody wants to feel used. Look no further than the disparity between the way that Cleveland reacted to LeBron James leaving for Miami and when they reacted to him leaving for Los Angeles, where he had promises kept. Feeling used is exactly why Notre Dame fans are still mad at Brian Kelly despite enjoying 7 10-plus win seasons with him at the helm. And feeling used is why Lincoln Riley isn't welcome in Norman, Oklahoma, despite bringing the Sooners to 3 college football playoffs and giving them multiple Heisman winners. Feeling used is why there's a good portion of the HBCU crowd that isn't down with Coach Prime. It's why Arizona is furious at Jedd Fisch after having their best season in decades on the heels of only having 1 win 2 years ago. But it's not always about the coaches that left after having success. Pitt fans are still upset with Todd Graham to this day because even though he was just an emergency replacement, he made Pitt fans feel like he used him to get the Arizona State job. And let's not even talk about how Tennessee fans feel about Lane Kiffin. I had Willie Taggart, when he was the coach at Oregon, try to stop me from reporting on his interest in Florida State by telling me he wasn't going anywhere. And he tried to guilt trip me for being a Duck alum and causing discord when he had no plans to leave. Full-blown lie. And I had to get over that by throwing all my support behind Mario Cristobal. And Mario Cristobal is a man who I knew would have left Alabama for Miami. He resigned from the presidency for the Miami job. So when Miami opened up while he was at Oregon, I had to remind myself that his priorities and the things that are most important to him aren't the same things that are most important to me. And it's also the reason a group of alumni started to clamor for somebody who did have those priorities like Justin Wilcox, because the frustration takes you out of being focused on winning and makes you afraid of losing. So how do you get over it? Some people never do. And look, hate is like coal. It's dirty fuel, but if that's what runs your engine, you do you. But there's a saying in the dating world, the best way to get over somebody is to get under somebody else. And you hear coaches say it all the time when a critical player leaves the program, we're focused on the guys in this building. Next man up. So if you're a Washington fan, get over Kalen DeBoer by just focusing and rooting on Jedd Fisch. And if you're an Arizona fan, get over Jedd Fisch by focusing on Brett Brennan. That's your only option at this point. And if you're an Alabama fan, If there's no room next to your fullback Nick Saban tattoo, maybe get Kalen DeBoer's initials tattooed on your shoulder, because it just means more. So to all my friends in the Unafraid Show community that love college football just like I do and want somebody that you can trust and believe in, maybe the next guy is the guy. And you're not going to know unless you open yourself up to that possibility. And if that makes us idiots, whatever. Then let's go out in the spirit of America's favorite fictional idiot, Michael Scott.
No question about it. I am ready to get hurt again.
Let that sink in. And that's the Unafraid Show. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and share with a friend, because your time is the most valuable thing that you have, and I appreciate you spending it with me, because it's not about me, it's not about you, it's about us. But next week's guest, oh yeah, you are going to be excited. Mr. Dan Lanning, head coach of the Oregon Ducks, in the building on the Unafraid Show. Make sure you tune in.